Hello everyone, it's Maha from Maha's Treasure Box.
And Will from Atypical Tarot. And, I love coming to your place because every time I come here, there's tons of decks. I don't think I've seen all of your decks because there's decks like in places all over the place. So, but when I do look at them, most of them I've never seen before. And the ones that I'm looking at, a lot of times I think, well, should they be trimmed or not? And so I'll talk to you about them. And so what's your approach to trimming?
A little bit of background, everybody. Up until this point, I had never trimmed any of my decks. But you've been trimming your decks.
All of mine I've trimmed. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of like really picky about it. And I don't have as many decks as you, first of all. So for you, it's kind of like a big decision as to which one you want to trim or not, because it takes time. It's a lot of work.
But I have to say, though, there are some decks that even when I got them, I knew I was going to get them trimmed. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten them even to begin with.
Right. So
To begin with, there's two decks that I just already got trimmed. He trimmed them for me. He edged one of them. So I wanted to show you those two because they look so good to me. Trimmed.
Exactly.
And I couldn't see it any other way.
And this is one of them, Greek mythology reading cards.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen this deck before, but then when she showed me the borders, I was drawn to the borders and it was distracting to me too. And you mentioned that you couldn't focus on the image as well.
I unboxed it and it was literally making me feel dizzy. Like the borders, although they're beautiful, they were too busy. The images, I couldn't focus on the images, there were just too many things going on. So this is the one deck that I was like, there's no way I could work with this deck unless it's trimmed. Like, it has to be trimmed.
And I did go ahead and trim this one.
And
so
it looks
I trimmed it
amazing.
for her. And so I'll put some better images of the cards
Looks
up. But
so much better.
I did keep the top and the bottom, just the name on the top. And there is a description on the bottom. But yes,
we were kind of undecided at first if we should trim the bottom part or not, but to me it just looks much more balanced, and also the back of the cards, it's more balanced with a line on the back.
Right. So there's two lines on the back instead of that one line being there. Definitely.
Yeah, and actually, I like the shape too. I like that long vertical shape. And this is a deck that I'm going to definitely talk about in another video just by itself because I love this deck. I read the guidebook, just finished it today, and it's an amazing deck, but it looks so much better. I think it would look really good edged in black too.
Exactly. But
Edging. That's another one.
I wasn't sure about how they would be kind of long, but I've also trimmed my Marielle, which you don't think should be trimmed, but I trimmed that one and I wasn't sure how that would be because it would be kind of long too, but I like it. I like it.
Yeah, this one for sure. This is one of the ones that had to be trimmed. There are some decks we're going to show today that we're kind of undecided whether or not we should trim, but these first ones that we're going to talk about, I mean, these two definitely had to be trimmed. Otherwise, I couldn't even really work with them. So the next one is the Magical Forest.
Yes, Tarot, the Magical Forest. I personally, when I first looked at it, thought it was kind of an average looking deck, but it wasn't my style. But now that I've trimmed it and edged it in metallic blue,
good edged
it
with
looks,
that blue.
It really does.
Love
and
it. Oh my gosh.
Still, I wouldn't personally have this deck because it's just not a deck that I would gravitate towards. I love the images though. I think it's absolutely beautiful.
The colors are so much more vibrant. They come up so much more without the borders. I mean, this deck with the borders, I wish I could show you a before and after.
Oh yeah, I can put
so
up a
much
before.
better.
I'll put up a before and after.
Because it looks so good like this. To me, it raises the price of the deck. Like it's more special now.
It is. It's unique. It's just your custom thing, especially when you edge a deck and you do it in something different than black, like this metallic blue fits the background on the back, the blue in there.
Really smart.
It really does.
And it's a low Scarbeo deck. You would never tell just looking at that deck now. It looks like a self-published, very deluxe looking deck now.
Okay, so the Fae Tarot. I like it. It has it's kind of cartoony, huh?
Yeah.
But
whimsical cartoon. It's got a unique style, but I've seen this trimmed. It looks amazing.
So the borders are different colors. That has like a thin border on there that has different colors. What do you think about that?
I guess that could be left. depends if you edge it or not. If you don't edge
it could be left. If you're not really handy with a pair of scissors and you want to do that, that's kind of hard. Because, I mean, if you're cutting with just scissors, you have to really take your time to get that thin border and make sure you don't cut into it. But it could be done to keep that. Totally, right?
Lisa from Tarot Alchemist, she trimmed this one too. And like I said, when I first saw it in the review, it was trimmed.
And the other thing is better. You will lose the numbers on the side.
That's the thing. To me, some cards in this deck are a little bit tricky to know exactly what they correspond to automatically.
Like 4 of Chalices. Would you know that was 4 of Chalices?
Not necessarily. I guess if I thought about it, but I think the 8 of... Was it the 8 of Swords that you showed me last time? That was really hard to tell.
I don't remember which one it was, but 6 of Chalices. So they're not standard Rider weight. So if you do lose that number, you might want to familiarize yourself with this deck before you cut that off.
Another thing I saw somebody do is with a very fine Sharpie, they wrote in a really creative way, they wrote what the cards were. Black Sharpie. Just a really tiny, tiny fine point Sharpie. That looked really nice.
Definitely. If you're artistic like that, if you have bad handwriting like me, you really want to take your time doing something like that before you grab a Sharpie and go at it, right? Okay, so there are some very standard decks that people trim just, I'd say 99% of the people that get them trim them.
And I need to trim them as well.
And I saw these and I thought, wow, yeah. So
the Dreaming Way. That's one that it's a pretty standard Rider-Waite deck. So, you know, you're not going to get too confused if you cut off all the borders.
Oh, yeah. Typical just plain white border.
Yeah, that has to go. I think any border that's just there, useless, like typical white border. And this one you can leave the bottom. I'm going to leave the bottom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally could leave the bottom on this one. And the backs are just one pattern. So you're not going to make it look weird on the backs by trimming this, keeping the border. This
is definitely a must-be trim. This is the next on my list to trim.
Okay.
We've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. So what's next?
The Margaret Petersen. I thought about trimming. I saw Kasha from Tarot Map. She did. She trimmed, I think, 3 sides and left the bottom. That looked very sophisticated. It looked very nice. I saw it on Instagram. What do you think?
I think it's not a high priority trimming, you know, but I think that you could edge it in silver too. I think you could get away with that on this one because it has that kind of gray border, so maybe. But I don't know. Because even if you do cut the gray border, there's still that white border.
I don't know. I think the images are very painterly and some really abstract, so it would be nice to have the borders from the top and the 2 sides cut, I think. Okay, so the next decks that have to be trimmed.
And these are very common ones that I was surprised that they weren't trimmed. I don't have these. I don't have a lot of the just classic decks, you know, that a lot of people have. But when I saw these, I noticed that most people that have them, they do trim them. And that's, number 1, Druid Craft.
The Druid Craft, yeah. These are the Will Worthington?
Yep, Will Worthington decks. Yep.
The ones that he illustrated. So all of them, I think, should be trimmed.
Yep, Druid Animal Oracle deck, the Druid Plant Oracle deck, and the Wildwood.
Wildwood, yeah. Like, for example, this green border around it for this one, that can be left. That's really nice. But the white is not necessary.
I actually would get rid of that.
No way.
Yeah. No, I don't like that.
That green border around it, it has like a kind of... Are they all the same? Can you flip
They are all the same. They all have that green border around them.
I would keep that.
You could do it either way, but I would get rid of that, and then I would... I mean, definitely would keep the names on the bottom, the information on the bottom.
The only thing I would get rid of is the white border around it. Not the other border that it comes with. Just the white border.
Okay.
It's a shame to me to get rid of that other one. It's part of it. It's like a stony, earthy look. It goes with the whole theme. What about the...
Yeah, I don't think it's a disaster to keep it, but I would keep it.
The artwork in this deck is so beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
I love this. This is one of my top faves.
Oh, yeah.
Is the other one? Yeah, the other one, the animal, Druid Animal.
Okay, so Druid Animal, very similar.
I would keep the borders of, not the white borders. I would get rid of the white ones, but I would keep the...
So same deal.
Yeah.
I actually like this border a little bit better because it's more unique to me. I think it has like some cool little things in there.
Yeah, the designs, I like them. The kind of the knot designs, the Celtic designs on the bottom, and the plants goes with the theme.
Right.
And each one of them actually has a slightly different border, so slightly.
Is it?
Yeah, look, like the fire dragon is different from the...
Oh, you're right. Okay. Yeah. It is slightly different. Cool. Okay, so then the Druid Plant Oracle.
Yeah.
And...
Let's see the cards. I can't remember, but I know they all have that white border that needs to go. Yes, it's similar to the plant one. I mean, the
it's the same border.
Animal one. It's very, very similar to the animal one. Right?
I think it's almost identical. Yeah.
So, what I would do is if I trim them all, I could mix them and use it as one deck.
Are they the same size?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, so you'd have animal and plants. That'd be really cool.
And you know what? It's not that thick either, so you could definitely combine it.
Yeah, I love the artwork. The detail in the artwork. Look at that, Heather. Impressive. The detail.
Yes.
So amazing.
It is. The little bees on this one. So cool. And then so the Wildwood Tarot. I love this deck. I just have not gotten around to getting it. I mean, there's so many decks out there. It's like you see a deck over and over again. It's like, and you're like, I want to get that one. I want to get that one. But then
I've had a harder
something
time.
else.
I've had a harder time working with the Wildwood than the Druid Craft.
Right. I've seen James from Light of Riga uses this one. I've seen him use this one before, and he works really well with it. I think it can be a very good deck to work with, but it just depends.
Definitely a very spiritual deck. I really feel that earthy spirituality. Very beautiful. Certain keywords I don't resonate so much with, like the Ten of Stones, home. In general, for tarot decks, I don't really love it when there's a keyword, because tarot card could have so much more meaning than just one keyword.
And you know, that's a good point, because I found out recently that with decks that are especially Rider-Waite, I find myself not really paying as much attention as I could to the image when I see the keywords at the bottom, or I see just the typical Rider-Waite description at the bottom of what that card is.
Yeah.
I get drawn to the meaning of that, and I sometimes lose focus of the image. And a lot of what I get intuitively comes from the image.
Yeah, me too.
Another one that I think really should be trimmed is the Tabula Mundi, which is one that I really love, I really resonate with. And I would trim the black part. I remember you were asking me earlier about the black part.
The black borders, yeah?
Yeah. I definitely would.
Yeah.
I would get rid of that too.
I'm not 100% sure if I want to trim my Tabula Mundi yet. I've seen it trimmed and it looks really nice, but I don't know, I'm just afraid. A little bit worried.
Yeah, I can understand that. But I think the problem with these borders when they form a box around them is that when you do the corner rounding, you don't end up with a box. You kind of end up with the same thing as with Druid Craft.
Oh.
Where you have like that chopped off corner.
Oh, you were talking about?
Right.
Well, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying I'm not sure if I want to trim this one, period.
Oh, period, yeah. Okay.
Still not 100% sure if I want to trim this one, but I've seen it trimmed and I think it looks amazing. I just need a little bit more time to think about that.
Right, and I love the backs of these.
I love the back. Oh yeah, look at that. The hologram part.
That is
so
amazing.
Cool. Love it. And the next one is one that I have to trim. And this is a particular one because it already comes with a pretty elaborate border itself, which is this kind of Middle Eastern design. This is 1001 Arabian Nights. Not many people talk about this deck. I have the book, actually. I wanted to make a video one day about it. I have the illustrated book with all the miniatures. And it's such a beautiful book with like gilded gold edges. And the stories of each cards. Because when I bought this deck, I mean, the little guidebook, Lo Scarabeo, doesn't tell you anything about the stories. This is 1001 Nights. Each card is a tale
really?
Of itself. And it's a shame that the book doesn't have anything about that. So yeah, the borders of this one. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean typical obvious. White borders that could go.
This is screaming to
now. Would you get rid of the bottom?
I would get rid of all the white border, the white thing, but not the elaborate Oriental design around it.
Yeah. So when you look at the images, do all of them? Would you know?
That's the thing. You don't know at all. Most of these cards, it's really hard to know what it is. So I would have to study it first, study the stories. It's one of those decks I would have to spend a lot of time with.
Or you could just make the decision to use it intuitively.
Yeah.
And not worried about the right or
totally. That's actually a good point.
Because if it's not going to match that anyway, then maybe it's more for your intuition. Okay, so now we are going to...
Oh, the bird cards? Maybe that's also a must trim. The bird cards.
Okay.
No, I have this one I've had for a long time, and if you watch my videos, have heard me talk about it. The bird cards.
I remember that video. Bird cards. You said this is one of your favorite decks.
Yeah,
I remember that.
It is. I've used that deck so much, and I've gotten such amazing response working with it.
Right.
So yeah, the edges. I mean, the borders. This is just designed to be trimmed.
Must go.
It's just designed to be trimmed. I mean, it's just like it's as if they had a template to trim it, but they didn't.
Right.
It's one of those decks that's just the borders serve no purpose here.
None at all. They just get totally given away. So the next one is the Intuitive Tarot.
Intuitive Tarot.
Which I'd seen a few pictures of, but until I saw it in person, I didn't realize how much I really like it. So
I think this deck is out of print, if I'm not mistaken. I love this deck. It's so beautiful. Although I'm not really sold on cutting the borders off still.
Really? I would definitely cut the borders off, at least the top and the side.
Top and the side?
Just the top and the side. I would keep the bottom.
It's not distracting me too much, having the borders.
It's distracting me for some reason, yeah.
Kind of makes me think of like those Polaroid photos.
I don't like that. Yeah, it does look like a Polaroid. It does, to me, that cheapens it.
I guess so.
I think of a Polaroid.
So. Yeah. I mean,
so this deck is so me.
Is it?
It's so abstract and cool.
Love this deck. Yeah, I love this deck. I love reading with it. Love the artwork. It's very like flowy and organic, and colors are really nice and rich, and not too overwhelming rich. It is
I love that.
Dreamy deck. The art is kind of dreamy.
Wow. Really love it. But yeah.
So that one is not on my top priority to be trimmed, but there's other ones that need to be trimmed first.
I'll hang on to this one for a while, then I'll trim it and give it back.
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure yet about the trimming. I love the box. Love the box.
Yep.
It's a nice box.
Oh yeah, the book shows through on the front.
Okay, now the Cosmic Tarot, I wasn't sure if I wanted to trim it, but I've decided I want to trim it now.
Yeah, and I really like mine trimmed. If you look at some of my videos, you can see it trimmed in those videos. And so, first of all, these are the backs.
I love the back, and I think it would work because it's one of those decks where you can cut all around it, so the backing would look nice too.
Right, because when you trim the front, then you can get rid of the back too. So it just has one pattern on the back.
It's got this part on the bottom has a line too, so you can cut all around the line. I've seen Tarot Alchemist, also Lisa, she trimmed hers too, and it looks really nice.
Right.
But I have to say, I wasn't sure about it. We were kind of debating. I mean, you were trying to convince me to trim it, but I was saying for some reason I didn't want to, but I've decided to do it now.
I think you would like it. I think once you saw it in person trimmed, I think you would change your mind about it. And I mean, it's one of those things, you can't just trim one card. Once you trim one card, it's pretty much a done deal. All right, so the next one is medicine cards, and I'd never seen this one before.
Oh, really?
Nope. I've heard people talking about it, but I never really looked at it.
Love the guidebook. Yeah, this one.
The question I have on this one is the orange border.
I would keep the orange, personally.
Me too. Mm-hmm. I actually do agree. The only problem is when you cut the orange border on this one, you're gonna cut if you want to round the corners, then you're gonna lose. It's not gonna be a complete box. But I guess that doesn't really
I love how they
hurt
smell.
that much. Oh, yeah. I like the back of these.
Yeah, it's pretty 80s.
It wakes you up. Kind of
Nice
makes you
t-shirt.
more alert. Oh, super maha.
Yeah, the guidebook for this deck is phenomenal.
Really?
It's a real book.
What is it about?
It's just the animals and animal medicine, and it gives you a lot of information. It's really great. You should definitely look at it.
Oh, okay. So the next section that we have, these are the Blue Angel decks.
Oh, the Blue Angel decks.
And
yeah.
the first one
a lot of them really have to be trimmed.
So Sacred Rebels, I have this one and I trimmed it.
It looks really good trimmed, so this one for sure has to be trimmed.
Now, one thing I will say about trimming this one is that the back has a yellow border on the back. So if you're going to trim them, if you flip them over and look at the back while you trim them, that's better because if you look at the front, you'll keep the yellow on some of the cards, and that's a little bit annoying.
Oh.
Because you have this little bit of a yellow border on the back. See that yellow border?
Yeah.
That right there will show up in weird ways on the cards. Like one might have it, one might not. If you're not paying attention to that, that's all.
Okay.
Then we have
The Oracle of Mermaids.
Oracle of Mermaids.
By Lucy Cavendish, definitely trimmed. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. I've used this one a lot. And you know how the Blue Angel ones, they have like this typical borders that come in various colors, light colors, usually pastel-y colors, but they really are just
they're all
useless
similar.
borders.
Again, with the Oracle of the Dragon Fae, same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing, same type of border.
Yeah. Yeah, they all have the similar, like, it's like a template. Like, maybe in the factory they have the similar template and they just put the pictures on and, it's like a standard thing they do. Most of them. Sometimes some of them are without borders and they look really elegant.
But I love the Blue Angel decks, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I love them. I love the box.
Secret Language of Animals, Oracle. You have some really good decks.
So, Secret Language of Animals Oracle cards. I made a video on this deck a long time ago, and in that video I mentioned that if I were to trim any of my decks, I would trim this one. So this one is, again, one of the must-trimmed decks. To be trimmed.
Rumi Oracle,
Rumi
another
Oracle,
Blue Angel.
There was the same artist, Rasuli, Persian artist. He did another deck with Elana Fairchild. I can't remember it now. Not Whispers of Love, but something love. Journey of Love? Yeah, Journey of Love. Good, I remembered. That one was the same artist, and it didn't have borders. It looked really, really good without borders. The art just pops up. This one, you'd be surprised how much better it'll look without borders. Especially this deck. I mean, all the borders are the same color. They're just this neutral tone.
It doesn't go with it, actually.
No.
It clashes with it. This is another deck that's very abstract that I think is totally my style that I would use.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
I think you would love it with the borders trimmed. Yeah, that one you'd have to do next, I think. The Rumi one.
The Rumi one?
And I had a hard time connecting with the Rumi one, so I think after I trim the borders, I will definitely like to work with it more.
Oh.
Same with Sacred Rebels. I've seen yours and it looks amazing.
Yeah. So, these next ones are ones that are kind of like maybes. We're not really sure about. So we decided to keep them for last. Maybe we won't even go through all of these.
Just to kind of talk about why some decks are okay not to be trimmed, even though they do have a big border. Like, that's a good example. The Steel Wizards.
Steel Wizards, I like the border on these, actually. And I think that it just needs to be edged black.
Yeah, that would be nice. Even though it has, like, quite a big border, and some people see this and they're just like, oh my gosh, I can't stand the borders. They just, like, have to get rid of borders. But in my opinion, and I used to work at a framing shop, I think it really depends on the borders.
Mm-hmm. Plus, I think it would be kind of hard to trim this one because the borders are different. Like, this border is different from the major arcana borders are different.
And even the minor arcana, they have are they all the same, the minor arcana? They have different colors. So it's like the element.
It would take a while, I think, to trim.
I think it would be a shame to get rid of the borders.
Yeah, beautiful borders.
So we'll keep this. So some have borders, but I decided to keep them for a reason. Another one, which I don't have here in this pile, is the one we did at Gypsy Palace. The Gypsy Palace has these red borders. I wouldn't get rid of that either.
Yeah, me either. And plus, it's already kind of a small deck, too.
That's true, too, yeah. I've seen some people have the borders cut off, and I don't know.
Okay, Vision Quest.
Oh, yeah. What? Is this the one with the blurry borders?
It just has that's why I included it. Yeah, that's why I included it because I felt like they didn't distract from the image because they are soft and it kind of goes softly into it, and I like that. I like when they do that. I like when they kind of blend it into the
kind of like that little crystal deck that I did a video of.
The Wurtzer deck.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, and I included Shadowscapes only because I think that Shadowscapes also doesn't need to be trimmed because even though it has a plain border, I like the silver color. And I think that if it was just edged silver,
this is silver. If it was white, for a second in the light it looks white, but yeah, no, this is very beautiful.
I would edge it silver.
It's like the color of gray. That's the gray card color, which they use for photography to kind of test colors. So it's such a perfect gray actually for art, for displaying art.
Yeah. So that's a nice border.
What about the Medicine Woman one? So
Medicine
one,
Woman.
I think.
I don't remember this one.
Has
okay, now.
Right. This is kind of tricky actually. I would keep the borders.
Yep.
Not my top one to get rid of.
Because most of the cards white in there anyway too. So.
And it's nice. It balances out with the lines around it. It doesn't conflict,
right? Yeah. Then we have the Fountain Tarot.
Oh, that one you picked for...
I picked this one because I wanted to say something. I wanted to say that I don't like the border. I like the gilding. But I find it very hard to cut borders off decks that have so much nice, beautiful gilding on them like that.
I know. I couldn't.
But then I'm like, I just don't like the border.
Too bad. It's too bad. It's one of those things that... It's just, I know what you mean. Edged black, also Marielle. I wouldn't trim Marielle. No way. Not my Marielle. I know yours came with white borders.
No, it didn't actually.
Really?
When I think about it, it didn't. I still trimmed it though.
I wouldn't trim it. Yeah. He has. We disagree on that.
I think we disagreed on this one too. The Mythic Oracle.
Really? Yeah, you said you think it's better?
I think...
No, definitely.
I think just the sides. I would keep the top and the bottom. But I think the sides on this one I would get rid of just because I think it's generic. It's not really special to me.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like a PowerPoint where you can pick the background or font.
It reminds me of the back, and it's like a Greek design, geometric design of the Greece.
I'm just not like wow.
Architecture.
I'm just not like wow.
The ceramics, the Greek ceramics have that design. I would keep it.
Okay.
No.
All right.
I would keep it.
Well, you keep that then.
Definitely.
All right.
Which other one?
Okay.
Yeah, so the Wheel of Change tarot.
Wheel of Change. I'm not sure.
That's a nice tarot deck. I love this one. Yeah. I was very surprised in a good way. The art is amazing.
And I don't mind the borders on this one either.
No, because they're all different colors, so it's nice when you're doing a spread to see like which one is what element and the major arcana. It pops up, and the colors are really rich. It's very detailed, so I think it's nice to have that color border to bring it out.
However, trimmed I still think would be nice too. Either way, I could say either way on this one. I could say if you do or don't. I think that one's fine.
So yeah, I have a lot more decks that we haven't really looked through, but these were the ones that we wanted to talk about. Yeah,
so many decks. She has decks in different places. I haven't even gone through probably 3/4 of them.
I think the ones that are not in boxes and are all in those fabric cases.
Right, those I
have so many of those that I have to go through.
One more that I wanted to mention was Wisdom of the House of the Night Oracle.
I was wondering what you think about this one.
And yeah, I love it. And I actually don't mind the borders on this one. Beautiful borders on this. I wouldn't trim it.
Because it has the
gilding. Exactly. Only thing about this one is I really just don't. I like my corners rounded.
Those sharp edges, you're right.
I don't know why. Yeah. I just don't. For some reason, when I shuffle, I just have a problem with just the sharp corners.
This deck, actually, even though you would think at a first glance that it's kind of a cheesy deck, I got really good readings with this deck. Really accurate stuff, yeah.
I've only looked at it very rarely.
I think you would like using it.
It looks pretty. Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, so again, I mean, there's so many decks, but good luck trimming these. No, I'm gonna help. I'll help you. I'll help you as much as I can, but it is a task.
I know. Gosh, it takes a lot, especially like edging them, which looks so cool. I love that one.
Oh yes, the one that I edged for her took me a while.
Oh, That's it. That was a fun video. Fun.
Yeah,
sure.
I think it was fun.
We want to know what you guys think. If there's any decks that you think shouldn't be trimmed that we mentioned, what are your thoughts? We're probably going to create a hashtag.
Yeah, this would be a great hashtag. So like decks that must be trimmed. So if you have other decks that must be trimmed, definitely
show it to us.
Show them to us, and we'll check it out.
Love to check it out.
Yep.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for watching.
Much love from both of us.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.